Let's just welcome everybody, and it's great to see you all here. We are expecting over 100 people, and welcome, Barbara. Really lovely of you to do this for us. It's been a while coming. We originally thought that we would do this before lockdown, and then at the very last minute we put it off, not knowing what would be happening. But here it is, and we're really looking forward to your wisdom and your sharing of the literature and whatever it is that you have for us. We did share the document that you gave us, called, I believe, Boyce's Control Principles. So if everybody would please have that available to them, that would be a great help. So unless there's anything else, we'll just pass over to Barbara and look forward to today's session. Oh, a couple of housekeeping things. Yes, you will receive a survey after the workshop today, and the link to Barbara's slides will be at the end of that survey.
Bye.
Secondly, if you do not want your face to be in the recording, then you can turn off your video, because this recording will be available to all PGSA after this session. Is there anything else that anyone thinks of that we need to say before we start? Okay then, Barbara, it's all up to you.
All right. Kia ora tātou. Welcome everybody, and thanks Robin for the invitation to run this session. So we've got it's a compact session, and I'll just give you a little overview about how I'm thinking about it. So I'm going to riff on the idea of practice and practice. Practice as a noun and practice as a verb. We're going to explore academic writing in both senses, because both senses are important as it happens. During the hour, we're going to use the breakout rooms twice, and my beautiful assistant, Robin, is going to be the back room guy, sorting out the breakout rooms when the time comes. And you'll be in small groups of 3 to discuss an issue that I will put to you. If you've been in breakout rooms on Zoom before, they can take a couple of minutes to happen, particularly when it's a large mob of people as it is today. So just wait, and you'll get an instruction to join a breakout group, and then at some point later you'll get an instruction, or you'll be told that you're coming out of it again. It's a slightly odd experience, but it's quite effective as well. Along the way, I'll refer to the Control Principles handout that Robin has mentioned already, and also the issue of under lockdown. I just thought we'd start by saying to you that I would start by acknowledging that there are people, colleagues of mine, academic colleagues, some doctoral students and so on, who are saying that lockdown is giving them space and time to really focus on their writing, and they're really loving that. But many of us are having very different experiences for all sorts of reasons, including how full our houses are, but also the turbulence of having of the uncertainty of the COVID-19 situation. And so many people in fact are experiencing that this is really impacting on their ability to focus and to write. And I happen to have turned out to be one of those people. It kind of has surprised me, but I have found myself very unsettled as a writer during this time. So we will talk a bit about that, and that's one of the threads of our conversation this afternoon. Okay, practice and practice. In the American spelling, you can't see the difference between these two words. They don't use the S for the verb. But in the English spelling, we do use the S for the verb. We have the noun with the C and the verb with the S. So the idea of practice as a noun, what does it mean? It means a customary, habitual, or expected way of doing something, or a preferred way of working. This is my writing practice. This is how I go about my writing. For academic writing, a writing practice is a dynamic mixture of you, your mind, your body, your memories, your feelings, your previous experiences of writing, your skills of writing, including your language skills. We need someone to mute. Your materials, another part of the mixture, the things you are reading, how difficult they are, how exciting they are. Your writing tools, whether it's computer or pen or pencil and paper, the cups of tea that you use to nourish your body, or the chocolate that you keep eating as you write. A place and a place. And places, of course, are full of, they have light, elements of light, of sound, of scent, of temperature, of comfort. There are other people in places, and a lot of us don't have much choice about our places, and haven't had much choice about our places over the last several weeks. So for academic writing practice is a dynamic mixture of these things. And so it's not surprising that at times we find we can pursue our academic writing practice with ease, and at other times it turns out to be really difficult, because this dynamic mixture changes. And COVID-19 has really made major changes to the conditions of academic writing as a practice. They've made it's messed with our emotions, it's messed with our home environments where we work, it's messed with the access that we have to our materials, and so on. The second meaning of the word practice is the idea of a verb, and this is also really, really important for academic writing. And it's not an aspect of importance that we really get to understand as undergraduate students, but we have to come to understand this as postgraduate students, as master's students, and as doctoral students, because it's this element of academic writing that enables us to improve. And it's the meaning of the verb to practice something, which means to rehearse something, to repeat something over and over until we become fluent or expert. There's a kind of myth on the street that it's 10,000 hours it takes to become an expert practitioner at something. So the idea of an undergraduate, particularly a capable undergraduate, of spend as few hours writing and throw no writing away to produce an assignment simply no longer works at graduate level. We have to have a new understanding of writing, and understand that a lot of the writing that we do to strengthen our writing, to build up our writing muscle, will get chucked away. And that when you write a dissertation or a thesis, you will do at least double the number
very shitty Mother's Day.
You will do at least double the number of words, if not
no, like my mum and Ben.
Somebody needs
like this is where like she's upset with Erin.
Robin, can you work out
but I'm like
mute?
I can't.
Just to say, someone's talking about Mother's Day and you need to mute. Okay, it's going to happen. We've got a lot of people here. So the idea of practice, repetition and rehearsal. For academic writing, the only way to really get this repetition and rehearsal into our writing is to develop the discipline of a routine. That means that we do lots of writing. Some people would say daily writing, and including writing that is not actually writing a chapter, something that is going to go into our thesis. And so we're going to talk more about that as we go on. So here are these two ideas of practice that I want to work with. Let me now unpack more the first meaning of practice. The meaning where we say, I have a practice, my writing practice, meaning my preferred way of working as an academic writer. And now we're going to move into our first breakout group. And Robin's going to do this. He's going to move you into groups of 3 people. So however many there are now, you're going to find yourself in a room with probably 2 other people. And what I want you to talk about, well, as Robin does this in the background, I want you to take a couple of minutes with a pencil and paper.
Just a moment.
Yes. Is it me who has to do it?
Breakout room option has disappeared from the bottom of my screen. Ashwini, you will need to do this.
Okay, it may be because I'm sharing.
That's okay. I'm sure Ashwini can do it.
If it does, So I'll get people thinking about this first issue while we figure this out. So the issue for you, everybody who's in the workshop, is to get a pencil and paper and make a list of what you would consider to be the ideal conditions for your way of working as an academic writer. What are the ideal conditions that make it most easy for you to work in that way? And now I'm going to move off sharing the screen, and we're going to sort out the breakout rooms. When you get into the breakout rooms, you're each going to talk about what those ideal conditions are. So just get ready, make that list, and we will see you shortly. Robin, can you see the breakout rooms now?
Nope.
Okay, I can.
You can. Go for it.
I can.
Set it as 3 and...
I'm going to do the math. We've
Don't
got
worry, the
74.
machine will do it.
Yep.
The rooms are coming.
Hi, Leila.
And it's also good to read about writers who write about the ways in which they work most successfully, not just academic writers, but other kinds of writers as well. Okay, let me pick up now another aspect of preferred way of working. And this is the Boyce's control principles. And what I want to do really with the control principles handout, which you have, you should have to hand because it was sent out ahead of the session, is just to get you to think about this list as a list of possibilities. Some of the things that are on this list will no doubt already be part of your practice. Just to tell you where this list came from, it came from this research done by Robert Boyce quite a long time ago now. He interviewed heaps and heaps and heaps of academics actually about their writing behaviours and he observed the writing behaviours of those who were productive writers and those who always felt as if they were unproductive writers. And out of the research he did, talking to people and observing their behaviour, he was a psychologist, so he used to go and visit them in their offices and notice what they did. He developed this list of what he called control principles. And what he means by this is that if you want to get more control over your writing practice, over the likelihood that you will engage in writing on any given day, here are some of the things that experience suggests will help you to do that. So looking at the list, noticing the things that are already part of your practice, noticing things that seem familiar to you but you've never tried them, things that you have tried but have forgotten, and maybe noticing things that are new. So I'm just going to unscreen share the PowerPoint for a second and is the power? Yes, it is. And I'm going to screen share the control principles list just because I want to make a couple of comments about it. Now I have it somewhere here. There. Okay. I just wanted to have a look at this with you and to think about it because I've been looking at it again myself lately because my own writing practice has been in such terrible state. I've been trying to think about ways to revive it. And one of the things that I know really, really well for me is that if I do number 6, it makes a huge difference to me. If I say to somebody, let's meet at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon and write together for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, I will suddenly turn up to the desk and do the writing. Whereas if I put in my diary to myself a promise that I'm going to spend that time writing, it is at the moment in particular, but always, but at the moment it's worse, it's getting bumped by requests from people to do stuff, to read stuff. It's getting bumped by everything you can imagine. Email. I feel like I'm a person who has no control over my writing time. But the minute I make a decision to and an agreement with one other person to meet to write, it changes things. So 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine suggested that we do this for an hour on a Monday afternoon, and now this is what we're doing. 1 hour to talk about a particular writing project and to write on it for on a Monday afternoon. And we do it by Zoom. That's how we're doing it these days, but it immediately has lifted up my spirits in terms of thinking about writing. There will be other things on here that will be like this for you, things that you know work, but you haven't got around to doing them. And so what I can say to you is use this list and in a way that helps you to get some new ideas for how it is that you might go about your writing. A common idea, and this fits very much with where we're going next in this presentation this afternoon, is the idea of daily small regular amounts. And idea 11 and idea 6 could be brought together very profitably to mean that you are having a small amount of writing time every day because you've made a commitment with someone else to have it. So these ideas that Boyce gives us are useful. They can be the source of planning, a new way of thinking about your writing. They remind us that some of the ideas that we might have about writing, which is that I can only write if I have lots and lots of hours. That's idea number 10. From Boyce's perspective, it's a commonly held myth about academic writing, but he says that actually it's a very unhelpful myth, that you can better write in small regular amounts. He even reckons 30 minutes is a good enough time to think about writing. So my advice for using Boyce, the Boyce list, and I'm going to go back off this and into the PowerPoint, is to use it to try and think about some new ideas for your writing at this time when, for many of us, it is so hard to write. Sorry, I'm just moving this out of the way. Okay. And to see your writing practice as a space that you can experiment with, that you can try new things, new places, new techniques, new strategies, to improve your experience of academic writing so that you enjoy it more and that you become more productive. So wherever you are now with your academic writing, if it's not working for you, start experimenting and use the Boyce list as one starting point for that. There are many others out there on the interweb, and at the end of the session I've got a list of some very good academic writing blogs that are very helpful for this as well. So we'll come back to it towards the end. Okay, so what are the measures of whether you've got a good writing practice established in your life? It allows you to be productive, to produce writing, and the best kind of writing practice has elements of enjoyability in it as well. People light candles, people use incense, people make particularly nice cups of tea, people have rituals often that help to build the enjoyability of their academic writing life. So think about those things. You can experiment with them. Okay, now let me turn at the half hour to the other sense of the word of practice, which is the idea of practice as rehearsal. And so this is the other meaning that is so important for academic writing. In fact, both of these meanings are really important. To think about ourselves as in our academic writing as writers who care for ourselves. That's really the first meaning, which is to develop a good writing practice that's enjoyable and productive. But the second meaning, which is the meaning of rehearsal, repetition, is a very important meaning as well. I'm just going to close my door because someone started chainsawing a tree in the background. I have to say, I think it's one of the saddest sounds in the whole wide world is the sound of a tree being chainsawed. But anyway, my neighbour is doing this. Okay, let's talk about writing as a verb. Writing, something that we do. We practice our writing. We repeat and we try and learn and we repeat again. So a good metaphor for writing in this sense is the fitness metaphor, which is that in terms of if we want to strengthen our bodies in some way, one of the ways to do it is to do repeated exercise that works on particular groups of muscles and that allows those muscles to become stronger. It might work on our lungs. It allows our lungs to become more capacious, more responsive, but it requires this discipline of repeated and activity, which of course is one of the reasons that we often don't get around for doing it. So, but like fitness, writing gets stronger with repetition, particularly reflective repetition. So I want to kind of talk about that as an idea as well. So reflection can lead, in my view, reflection leads to improvement. It leads to skill building, if you want to think about writing as skills. It leads to craft development. I prefer myself to think about writing as a craft, as something that I do which is kind of creative, which has got lots of different elements, which has got that aspect of enjoyment, which produces something new and original, maybe even sometimes something that's got a little bit of beauty attached to it. That's kind of what I aim for when I'm thinking about my academic writing. Yeah, I don't always achieve that, I know that, but it's kind of the metaphor I prefer to think about rather than the metaphor of skill building for some reason. Reflection, one of the ways to think about reflection is that how to get reflection on our writing is finding ways to hold up a mirror to our writing. So we can see our writing from a bit of a distance. When we look at our writing in the screen as we write, or on the page as we write, we're not holding up a mirror. The connection between us and what we write is intimate and close. Holding up a mirror allows us to stand back from our writing and look at our writing a little bit from a distance. So how can we hold up a mirror to our writing? What sources of reflection can we think about? Well, some of the places that we can get mirrors, if you like, to think about our writing are the writing blogs that I've just mentioned a few minutes ago. There are some people out there writing some really good academic writing blogs that are full of ideas for techniques and strategies and tips for how to engage with our writing in a fresh kind of way, in a new way, in a way that we haven't engaged with it before. And in doing that, that's one of the ways that we can create a little bit of distance between ourselves and our writing. Likewise, there are lots of handbooks, and as the library is open as of next week, some of those writing handbooks will be very easily available from the library. Not all handbooks are helpful. I often find the blogs are more lively in my experience than the handbooks, but nevertheless, there are some, and I've got some suggestions for some at the end of this PowerPoint. Other sources of reflection, of course, are other readers, and one of the risks inside graduate research is that you rely on your supervisors entirely to be the readers for your writing. And actually, what you need is you need other readers. You need readers who you feel more comfortable with. You need readers where you have a reciprocal relationship, where you give each other feedback on your writing, where you have some laughs about your writing, where you feel more relaxed about showing your writing. One source of these kinds of readers, of course, is writing groups. And so one possibility is to think about setting up a little mini writing group with 2 or 3 others in your network, in this network. Another way to hold up a mirror to your writing is to read your own work aloud. When we read our work out loud in our voice, we hear it more as if a reader hears it, especially if we don't gabble. And one of the things I immediately notice when I read my own writing, my own academic writing out loud, is that I always write in sentences that are too long. They may be grammatical, but they are too long, and the reader gets tired. And the way I notice it when I read out loud is that as I read my work to myself, I begin to get tired at the sound of my own work. And I notice suddenly that my sentence is way too long and it needs to be broken up into at least two pieces so that the reader isn't exhausted by the time they've got to the end of it. I also notice things like I'll notice grammar mistakes that I don't notice when I'm reading silently on the screen. So that's another way to hold a mirror to your work. Read it out loud, slowly and carefully, and listen to it. You will hear things that you don't see. Another technique, putting work aside for a while. It's an excellent technique for letting the kind of closeness and the tiredness that we feel with our writing and the doubts that we feel about our writing, inevitably, they will settle, they will sort of dissipate a little bit if we put work aside for a while and turn to do something else. And I mean for days or maybe a week, if you can afford to, and move to some other writing task. or stop writing for a little while, or write in a journal in a different kind of mode, a different kind of voice, write in the first person, write stream of consciousness writing, do something else. So stopping a piece of work and coming back to it is another way of creating the space that allows us to hold a mirror to that writing. Reading work off screen. Students nowadays, and I know this again is difficult maybe for some at the moment because under COVID, people don't have printers and so are stuck with working on screens. As a temporary arrangement, combining working on the screen with reading aloud is a really good way of holding a mirror. But once we get out of COVID and you can get access to printing, you should always read written work at least once off the screen. It might be wait till you've got a full draft. That might be the sensible time, but you should always at some point sit with it as paper somewhere away from your screen, reading and interacting with it with your pencil or your pen and seeing it on the page because it looks different and you have a different relationship with it on the page as well. So these are some of the suggestions I've got for how is it we can reflect on our writing, because what you need in that reflection process is you need to notice your writing, to notice what's working well and to notice what isn't working well, and to think about some ways to make what isn't working well better. And as you get more experience at doing this, your inner voice gets stronger. But even when your inner voice is quite strong, and my inner voice at my age, in my 60s, of having written many, many, many academic things, I've got quite a strong inner voice that can make suggestions about my own writing. But I absolutely still need these other mirrors. I need other readers. I need the feedback I get from writing groups. I need to read my work aloud sometimes to hear it, because as it pours out of my thoughts onto the screen or onto the page, it has its own life. And it's the kind of writing that comes out is not the kind of writing I want my readers to be reading. It's not always helpful for them to be reading. Okay. The second part of the screen is about the many techniques for practicing writing. And by practicing writing, we're now talking about rehearsing. We're now talking about building up the 10,000 hours. So one that Robert Boyce suggests is setting aside 30 minutes a day for daily writing. And a very good technique that you can combine with this is fast writing, which just means writing without editing and this is writing for yourself really, more than writing for another reader. What might you do for your daily writing? You might write about an idea that you've been reading about. You might write, what am I thinking about my research question today? You might write about some puzzle you've got with what you're currently working on, a question with your ethics application or your proposal. And you just write, this is what I think's happening here. This is what I really want to say. You just write it all in the first person as if you're talking yourself down from a high building onto the ground. You're soothing yourself through your writing. But the writing itself is practice for writing. And even though you don't show it to anybody and it doesn't go to your supervisor, it's you being a writer and practicing your writing, making sentences, making paragraphs, stringing words together. So that's one technique. Another technique, daily composing for a fixed time period or to a target number of words. Composing is different to fast writing. The other word for composing is drafting. It means you're now writing something that you want someone to read. It's stuff that you're going to be giving your supervisor, maybe, or your course lecturer as an assignment. So it's actually saying, I'm going to do an hour of work on this now, or I'm going to write until I've written 250 or 500 words, and I'm not going to stop until I've done that. This is another technique for keeping writing regular and practicing writing. Some other techniques that you could also think about using are daily writing about your research process or experience in a journal or a logbook. And this could be a physical journal, which would give you a nice change from being on the computer, or it could be something in your computer. And this could be combined with the first suggestion of the fast writing. It could be writing that's very fast, very expressive, and only for a limited amount of time. And so you shut the world out and say, I'm going to write in my research journal for 30 minutes now, everybody, and off you go. And for 30 minutes, this is what you do. And it keeps your thoughts moving. It You have to use your vocab. You've got to create those sentences. You sometimes solve problems by doing this kind of writing. It's a really good technique for keeping writing as part of your regular daily activity. Another suggestion, daily writing about what you read. This can go into the journal or logbook. It can go into the computer. It can be something that you share with your supervisors. For example, a one-page summary and evaluation for every article or chapter that you read. Writing with others, and this is a suggestion that I was talking about earlier, item number 6 on Voices list. Making times to do write on site. Now, I think the library's got a write on site going for doctoral students at the moment, at least once a week. But you don't need to wait for the library to do this. You can do this yourself with 2 or 3 other people. At the moment, I'm running one with doctoral students in my school. And what we're doing is we are meeting for 5 or 10 minutes together. And then I'm sending all of them into a breakout room on their own for 25 minutes. And then bringing them back. And I'm in one on my own writing as well. Then we come back for 5 minutes and have a chat about what's going on. And we repeat that 25 minutes in breakout room, 5 minutes back together 4 times across 2 hours. And that's our write on site. And again, this has just started last week. And one of the reasons I decided to get it going was because I needed something for my own writing life to get it cracking again. And I was becoming more and more aware that students were needing it as well. Writing groups are also a good idea, as are little writing retreats. And you can have a writing retreat with one friend. You can have writing retreats. You can get your school to organize writing retreats. At the moment, of course, writing retreats are on hold, but post-COVID life is coming back to us and they will be possible again. The last thing I want to say on this slide before I move on is that new habits of any kind take time to establish. And one of the ways I've seen suggested for physical exercise is to think, I'm going to do this, and to kind of really make yourself do something every day for 2 weeks. And to see it as a training exercise. It's going to take time. And at the end of the time, the 2 weeks, the chances are you will have established this new habit. You will have trained your family, the people that you live with. You will have trained yourself, the most difficult person to train often, to move in this new way with your writing. And it may not be every day. It might be 3 days a week. It might be 2 days a week. So my new regime as of last week is 1 hour on a Monday afternoon with 2 friends now, and 2 hours on a Friday morning with a bunch of doctoral students. And that's my new regime, and I'm glad of it because it's giving me 3 hours of writing that I haven't had for the last 7 weeks. And like you, I've got deadlines. Okay, we're going to go back into our breakout rooms again for a short time. And in this case, and I will post the question on a message to everybody, and so that you have a chance to talk together about what kinds of writing habits you might like to embed. I'm just going to see if we've got 25. Yeah, we've got all the rooms again. I'm going to try and move anyone that wasn't assigned into a room to a new room. So that will happen as well. So here we go. I've got them on my last slide.
Oh, it's great.
Cool. Just to give you a bit of a sneak preview. Whoops, hang on.
Oh, that's great.
Cool. All right. So we're at 4 minutes to the hour, and I want to finish on time because I know some of you will have other things that you have to turn back to at the hour. So I wanted to kind of recap some of the things I've been trying to say here in a fairly messy way and a bit more didactic than I might usually like to work, but this is needs must in the online environment. So remember, there is the practice, the art or the craft or the skills of writing. There's the setting up a writing life that works for you. And the test of a writing life that works for you is that you do produce some writing and that sometimes it's enjoyable. No writing life is without its bumps. If you read any people's books about having a writing life, and there are many of them to read, you will learn that writing lives have bumps in them. And that's true for academic writing lives as it is for any other kind of writing life. Because we bring our whole selves to the practice of our writing practice, there's a lot that can happen that changes how we feel about it and how it works for us. There's also the need to regularly practice your writing. So in other words, to create the discipline of regular writing exercises accompanied by some kind of reflection, not just supervisor or lecturer feedback, but other people and your own feedback that helps you to strengthen your writing and to grow your academic voice. None of us was born with an academic voice. We all have to grow them. And postgraduate, some of us began that journey as undergrads, but a lot of undergrads don't grow a very strong academic voice. But master's study and doctoral study really is the time where you can start to grow that academic voice, which will continue growing beyond master's and doctoral study, but which will have its roots in the work that you do here, because it is so intensive. So start the journey of growing your academic voice and understand that that growth is underpinned by hours of practicing writing. In my experience, both of these things, practice with a C and practice with an S, are essential elements of postgraduate research education, but they never stop being needed throughout academic life. The work of becoming a good academic writer never stops. I still run academic writing retreats. I've been running them for nearly 30 years for academic writers who are from professors right down to new lecturers. And we go back year after year after year to learn from each other about academic writing, to do our writing together and in the company of each other, to have our crises over our academic writing. But the actual process of learning to write, growing an academic voice, goes on as long as one is engaged in academic work. So it doesn't stop. You are not peculiar because you struggle to find a voice. Most of us feel that we don't have the voice we really would like to have. Back to lockdown. This is my closing words, really. I've shared with you in this session that I've struggled with writing in lockdown. I have a deadline, which I'm going to have to ask for an extension very politely. And some of you will know that feeling because you'll be doing the same thing as students with your supervisors and your course lecturers. But the decision I made a couple of weeks ago, with the help of friends to get, and doctoral students, to get some time writing with other people and to book it in my diary and to commit to be there, has really cheered me up. And it means that I'm beginning to feel now that actually I can get the writing done instead of feeling as if I was floundering around in a swamp and getting nothing done. So my question to close with is, ask yourself, what will help me? What will help you? What will help me settle into a more enjoyable and more productive writing practice? One that means I spend more time practicing my writing. And no one can answer that question for you. People can just give you ideas and suggestions. Or sometimes a good friend or a peer can say, let's do it together and see how it goes. You can help each other. Writing can often be very fruitfully social. So that's my closing question for you. And before I leave, I just want to highlight what I've left behind in the last couple of slides on the PowerPoint, which Robin is going to send to you. I've left you some links to some writing blogs and other resources. Some of those writing blogs, the first 3, are aimed at masters and doctoral students, people writing research dissertations and theses, and they're full of brilliant stuff. I've also made a list of some further reading. There is a heap of reading. The best way to figure out if a book is going to be any good for you, by and large, is to sample it, because I find myself that it depends on the voice of the author whether I really find a writing handbook helpful. Some people's voices just rub me up the wrong way and I don't enjoy them, and then I don't want to listen to their ideas. So there's I've given you a sample here. If you go into the stacks in the university library, the physical stacks, you'll find, if you find one, you'll find 100. But also sometimes you can use the online searching in this way. So I've given you here the results of a little bit of online searching that I have done, showing Helen Sword's books on academic writing. And when I clicked on one of those books that was a hard copy book, it gave me the option of browsing the shelf, which is the bottom box. And there you can see the library actually helps you to do a bit of browsing by lining up the books that are similar alongside the book that you're looking at. And the last tip I had was a table from a book by Rowena Murray. So it's available online in the university library. She's got, her book is about writing in social spaces. It's a book that really advocates for thinking about academic writing as a social activity, not an isolated activity. And I'd like to leave you with that thought. Think about how to be with others while you write, where you actually do some writing, but also where you have some opportunities to do some talking about writing as you go. Okay, we've gone just over the hour. I think I better say ciao, haere, farewell, good luck with your writing. Don't think that where you are now, if it's not a good place, is where you have to be next week. Imagine something different for yourself and experiment with it. Thanks, Robin.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Barbara, from all of us.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of thank you messages coming through.
I'll do
Now,
the stop share and then
I
I can
just-
see the chat.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't see the chat and the share screen, so yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Are you open for Q&A, question and answer?
I could stay for 10 minutes to do some Q&A if people want to.
Okay, so if you have a question, people, unmute, ask your question, and then mute again, please.
Yeah, Barbara, I just really hard to find someone to, be my mirror. Because my writing always like a few thousand words. My colleagues are busy. My husband probably also gets bored of reading my writing all the time. It's really difficult to find the mirror to do it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the solutions for that is to give people less than the whole thing. Give someone a paragraph or a few paragraphs so that they don't get, it's pretty daunting picking up a big chunk of work and feeling like you can give good feedback without giving it a lot of time. So one thing is to make the task smaller, because even a paragraph, if you get good feedback on it, can really help you. The other thing is to find a reciprocal practice, to find a partner where this is something, a partner or a trio where you do this for each other. And so, yes, it is hard. You're asking for someone's time, but they, in doing what they give you, will get your feedback at another time. And so this is one of the ways that writing groups work best, is when there's this kind of reciprocity, so that you do give your hours to other people, but they give their hours to you. Of course, remembering too that when you read someone else's work and act as their mirror, you learn stuff, because by looking at someone else's writing and making comments on it, you're kind of teaching yourself at the same time. It's a kind of interesting way in which this process works. So yes, it's not easy. Reach out to someone, suggest that you do this with each other. You may have to try a few someones before you find someone who will say, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Hopefully my little talk today has made people think maybe this is a better idea than I think. Some students think the only people that can give good feedback are teachers. That is so not true. It is so not true. Teachers often give feedback hard to understand, grumpy. We're humans. Peers are very good sources of feedback. Jet.
Yeah. I just want to ask, what's your advice for those who are dealing with mental health? Because it's absolutely difficult to write, especially if you're dealing with anxiety.
Yeah, it is. And so, I mean, it's hard to give this in a very short answer, but I can give you one answer. Writing has got an honourable legacy, an honourable reputation as a therapeutic exercise. Some of the best books on writing and keeping a journal are written for people, are written from a therapeutic perspective. And so, so think about how to blend writing with where you're at. Maybe open a journal where you write about, You write out of your anxiety and your sadness, your grief, your unwellness. You let that on the page along with what it is that you're struggling with in your academic work. And so you might write like this: today I can't write shit. I feel terrible about my work today. And just make yourself keep writing like that for 20 minutes. What sometimes happens is that at the end of it, some of the feelings have slightly shifted a bit, and some other bit of you has begun to get interested in something that you started to think about. And so using the writing as a way of catharting, putting the emotions on the page, as I say, and there are books out there on therapeutic uses of writing with lots of really cool writing exercises in them, which allow you to use writing as a way to process mental unwellness, mental sorrow, mental anxiety, the things that people are feeling, some people already, and then feel more under the conditions that we're at now. So see writing as a power for helping.
Barbara, just one more question. So free writing is also be helpful to my academic writing, because I like free writing, just no strings attached to anything about family or story, just what I've done.
Yeah.
Do you think it will be helpful?
It is helpful. I often suggest to my students, and in my own practice, I often use free writing. Actually, I attach it to something, like I'm worrying about this thing that I'm not writing. And so I'll start by saying, what am I trying to say here? And then I'll just write without stopping all the things that pour out of my brain, a lot of which is not that useful. And then often in the middle of it, there might be one really good idea. Some people free write just starting with whatever's in their head, but I often start with something that's about my writing task, like why am I stuck? Why don't I believe in this work? Why do I think this work is so bad? And I just write my answers to that to try and clear the emotions that so often are associated with academic writing. Doubt, feeling like what you've got to say is no one wants to read it, that it'll get a terrible grade. These feelings don't go away when you're an old academic writer either. Sorry.
Just one other question. Do you have any experience with people writing in the second language, or some advice, because that might be a bit different perspective?
I'm not 100%. I'm not a language teacher. I do know, and I sometimes say that academic writing is nobody's mother tongue. So no one learns to write academic writing. So you can grow up speaking English and have a terrible time learning to write learning to have a good academic voice. So I don't think it's like one group of people have got massive problems and one have got none. It's not that simple. And there are all sorts of people writing in English who have got other kinds of learning issues that make writing troublesome for them. So, but my advice is, when I say, if you write in the first, if for fast writing you go back to a very personal, non-academic kind of voice to do that, that's a good strategy. It might equally be a good strategy to fast write in your own mother tongue if you are stuck with something, or you need to write to unblock yourself. It might be better to write in your mother tongue, right, rather than to try and write in this other tongue, because mother tongues are often places where we can more easily express shades of meaning, emotions, doubts that don't come to us in the other tongue. So work with it if you can.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Thanks, Beate. Any other questions? Jet.
Can we join your writing group? Can we sign up to your writing group?
Actually, the writing group that I'm running in my school is full at the moment. It's got about 12 people in it. So it is actually full. But I am very happy, Jet, to have a side conversation about setting up a group. You've got this Facebook community. And if you wanted to set up a group, I've got resources and I've got a model, and I'm very happy to share that with you if you would like to have a side conversation about that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of participants here at the meeting are kind of like, have been really motivated to join a writing group. So I was telling them that right after this meeting, we'll be sending a thank you note and asking them if they would like to join PJSA writing
Good.
group. And we will be happy to have you there sometime, maybe a visit.
Yeah. The model of writing group that I use in Christie is one where we have a roster where we put work up for feedback. We have 1 hour meeting once a month. Someone's work gets feedback in that meeting. Sometimes 2 people, and we split into 2 subgroups. It's a very simple model. It doesn't need an expert. It just needs people. But I can share that model with you, and you can see, you can do other things with writing groups. And so I've got some other resources on writing groups. Did I share that with you earlier, Jet, that stuff on writing groups?
Not yet. Not yet.
No, someone else contacted me a couple of months ago, just as we were going into lockdown, who was disappointed about not having the session that we had planned, and I sent them some resources, but I can't remember who it was now.
Absolutely, I will get back to you and ask for that model, and so we could use this in our writing group. Thanks a lot, Barbara.
Yeah, it's not rocket science doing a writing group, but it's commitment and goodwill.